Good evening and thanks for joining us for this update from your coronavirus headquarters. I'm Mike Thompson. Farming represents a top job group for migrant workers. About 46% of U.S. immigrants work in the farming industry. That's according to the Pew Research Center. Because of COVID-19 concerns, President Trump signed an order this week that will temporarily ban immigrants from seeking permanent residency. News 8 Now's Tyler Jobe explains the impact of this news locally.
Temporary workers migrating to the U.S. won't be affected by President Trump's new executive order. But one local dairy farmer says that doesn't mean Wisconsin farming won't take a hit.
A bunch of those workers have to go back, let's say today or tomorrow. Something like this could certainly hurt them as far as getting the seed in the ground, which then means later in the year we don't have a crop to harvest.
Wisconsin Farmers Union President Darren Von Ruden says 52% of dairy produced in the state is done by immigrants.
If we take away, even 20% of that labor force, that's a big chunk of the produce that might not get produced for the consumer.
UW-Madison Director of Dairy Policy Analysis Mark Stevenson says only a small portion of migrant farmers are permanent citizens.
That's not the majority of the workers that we have on our agricultural operations.
Therefore, most farms will still be able to work around the temporary ban.
Nevertheless, I think that we'll probably continue to see there's an adequate supply.
Von Ruden says only about 1% of members in the Farmers Union are migrants. Other state organizations have a higher amount.
Dairy Business Association in Wisconsin represents kind of the larger sector, larger farms in dairy. Their members would probably be 70, 80, or maybe even 90% have immigrant labor working on their farms.
With not as many migrant workers on the farm now, Von Ruden says life will not only be stressful for the workers, but the animals too.
Animals are like humans. We like to interact with people that we know and trust.
In Westby, Tyler Jobe, News 8 Now.
According to the state's Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection, Wisconsin has more than 7,000 dairy farms. That's more than any other state in the country. More than 5,000 people have now tested positive for COVID-19 in Wisconsin. 257 people have died in the state. However, more than 2,300 people have recovered from the virus. The first positive case is being reported in Vernon County today. And in a bit of good news, all 26 positive cases that have been reported in La Crosse County have now recovered. Nearly 150 employees and family members of workers at the Packerland meatpacking plant in Green Bay have tested positive for the coronavirus. In addition to the cases tied to that plant, Brown County health officials said yesterday there were another 39 cases tied to American Foods Group and 19 to sausage maker Salm Partners in nearby Denmark, Wisconsin. All of the plants do remain open. Meatpacking facilities in other states that have seen spikes in cases have shut down. In La Crosse, the Police and Fire Commission had its monthly meeting to talk about changes they've noticed in our community during this pandemic and since the Safer at Home order took effect. Calls overall have gone down for the police department, in part because Chief Sean Kudron says that many bars and businesses closed downtown. There are just fewer people to cause any problems. But there is one area that is cause for concern.
We have seen additional activity, slight rises in just trouble with parties at homes because people who are, staying at home, being amongst each other at times just aren't getting along. We have been seeing slight rises in our domestic violence crimes as well.
Chief Kudron also said the department's domestic abuse reduction team is also trying to do more outreach to victims at this time because a Safer at Home order and the pandemic itself has created a situation where it might be more difficult than usual for them to find other housing or to find other resources that they need. Now taking a look at the numbers in Iowa, more than 3,900 people there have tested positive and at least 96 people have died. Nearly 1,500 people in the state have recovered. There are 46 cases in Allamakee County and 9 in Winneshiek County. In Minnesota, 3 new deaths are being reported in Winona County, bringing that county's total to 13. Across the state, there are more than 2,900 infections and now at least 200 deaths. That includes the first death reported in Fillmore County. A little more than 1,500 people in the state have recovered. Houston County's public health director cautions the case numbers don't tell the whole story, especially in his county where access to testing has been limited. Vice President Mike Pence will visit Rochester early next week. While there, the Vice President will tour Mayo Clinic and speak with staff that are supporting COVID-19 research and treatment. No other details about the Vice President's visit have been released. Campgrounds in La Crosse County can now open as long as they follow specific guidelines. The La Crosse County Health Department announced the change earlier today. That is a change from earlier in the month when all campgrounds in the county were ordered to remain closed. Only half of a campground's sites can be occupied at once. Priority for space should be given to people who use campgrounds as their primary residence or essential workers. First responders who need to use the campground for quarantine or isolation-related housing will also have priority. Social distancing requirements do remain in place at all campgrounds. La Crosse's public pools will not open for the summer. The Parks and Rec Department announced the closure earlier today. The department cited the amount of people that are often at pools and the number of staff needed. There could still be an option to cool off, though. Splash pads and beaches will still be prepared to open this summer. Well, planning is still underway for La Crosse's Oktoberfest this fall. While the event is still on right now, mid-July is currently when a decision will be made about whether or not the La Crosse tradition will be held in 2020. But that could change as the pandemic evolves. The co-presidents of La Crosse Festival say in a statement, quote, "We wish everyone Gemütlichkeit and health. Whether it be 2020 or 2021, we look forward to celebrating Oktoberfest with our local community and visitors again," end quote. Meanwhile, Irish Fest La Crosse is canceled for 2020. The organization announced the festival is off for the year this morning. Anyone that has already purchased tickets can either have their tickets reissued for 2021, donate the money, or get a refund. Committee members for Irish Fest say they will use the extra time to plan ahead, and the news comes a day after Milwaukee's Irish Fest announced their cancellation. And Onalaska Community Days has also canceled for this year. The annual festival was set to take place this June at the American Legion in Onalaska. Event organizers are planning to have multiple fundraisers between now and a return of the event for 2021. Well, that's our report for now. Thanks for joining us for this update. You can always get the latest anytime on our website, News 8000.